Right guys, so welcome to the video, and today I want to talk about why you keep getting nagging pains and how to train to finally get rid of it in 90 days. So before I jump into this video, I want to first introduce myself. My name is Xingwei. Some of you might know me as CW Fitness on Instagram, and I want to start recording longer form videos like this to help you guys further and talk about my training principles, how I actually work with athletes, how I help athletes to overcome pain, to train smarter and perform better. Now, just a quick heads up, there won't be any flashy edits, any quick cuts. It's just going to be straight up information. And the reason I want to do this is to be as authentic as possible. And for those of you who have been struggling with pain, still wants to take your performance seriously, and you just couldn't figure out the solution, this video is for you. And if you can't sit through the long form video without any edits, I think you deserve to be in pain. And I'm sorry to say that. So for the rest of you, let's dive into it. Now, who is this video for? If you're an athlete in your late 20s, 30s, or even 40s, you are still training, still competing, or just trying to stay in shape. But every few months, the same thing happens, right? All sort of injuries comes up. Your knees flares up, there's hip issue, your lower back hurts, your groin hurts, there's sharp pains around your shoulder, or hamstring strain, ankle sprain, shin splints. These are some of the most common issues that I see among athletes, right? Now, I've experienced all of this pain myself as well. And the truth is that your body is not broken. It's not that you are old, right? You are just not training the right way for the body that you have now compared to when you were younger, when you were 18 years old. You just simply can't train the same way anymore. So in this video, I'm going to show you why you keep getting those nagging pains and exactly how you can train smarter to finally get rid of it without having to train 5 to 6 times a week. A few years ago, I was in the exact same spot, right? Every few months, something would break down, right? I was constantly getting all sort of injuries from shin splints, ankle sprain, hamstring pull, lower ab tear, everything that you can name off. And the worst part is I rest for a bit, I start training again, and then boom, the same pain, the same setback that happens. So I was stuck in this endless loop of nagging pains, and then I push through the pain. I got injured, I feel demotivated, then I go and visit a physio, rehab, right? I will feel good, then I would do those exercises for a bit, not sure how to incorporate into my overall training, then I would rest from sports, right? And then I'll start feeling better again, and then I'll come to a point where I feel like, okay, I might be ready to return to sports now, jump back into sports, and then boom, the same pain happens again, and in the same cycle. I was stuck in this endless loop. And I know many of you can relate to this, right? And that frustration is what led me to dig deeper, to use my studies, my knowledge, to actually understand how the body actually adapts, how to train to actually prevent pain, and how to never get injured again. Because these are actually things that you don't learn in school, even as an SNC coach, right? And that's what I want to share with you today. So just a quick summary of the injury list that I have in my first 2 years of returning back to sports, right? These are the entire list of things that I actually can remember. But since I changed up the way I train for the past 3 years, the only injuries that I've gotten is probably some sort of minor strains from overtraining, but I've never missed a single game since. So I still compete at a decent level. And even though I am in my late 20s now, I haven't gotten any injuries for the past 3 years. And touch wood, that stays the same. Now let's talk about the 3 biggest mistakes most athletes make, which leads to constant pain as well as nagging injuries, right? So the first mistake is training too much as well as too often. So this is the biggest misconception that I see among a lot of athletes, because athletes have this mindset of being disciplined, being highly motivated, like to push hard, and they think that more equals better. But the truth is that most injury actually happens when you train too much. It's not actually about you having a misstep in the game or landing your foot wrongly. It starts from training too much. It leads to muscle or joint fatigue. That leads to that moment where your muscle or your joints couldn't handle that pressure when you put on it during a game. That is where the snap happens. So our joints and as well as our tendons and nervous system needs time to adapt, and we need to give it sufficient time to recover. And sometimes, even though we feel good, even though our muscle feel fresh, our joint, our tendons, our nervous system. These are the things that actually need more time to recover, and these are things that sometimes we might not be able to feel, right? So when you have poor load management, when you try to go hard every single day, your body never actually heals properly, and the accumulation of fatigue is what leads to that breakdown when you make that turn, that sharp turn in the game, when you land awkwardly, right? It's because your body was fatigued, which causes that snap, that moment of breakdown in the game that leads to injury, right? So it all starts from the way that you train. Now, mistake number 2 is training like a bodybuilder. How does training like a bodybuilder different from an athlete? So a bodybuilder train muscle groups and not movements. So for example, your split looks like push, pull leg, chest, back, arms. You go to the gym, right? You focus on which muscle group that you have to train on that day. So if you are training that way, you are training like a bodybuilder. And the reason that we don't want to train like a bodybuilder is because in sports, you use more than just your muscles, right? It's also about the movement, the coordination, the different aspects that you need, such as power, speed, and so on. So if you were to train like a bodybuilder, you might build up, for example, a strong quads, but you have weak ankles, weak hips. When that happens, other areas of your body might take the hit, such as your knees. So it's almost like having a building with a strong structure, but the connecting joints of those structure are weak. And when the wind blow, when a huge impact land upon that building, the thing that breaks is not the structure itself, but the joints, right? So same as your body, and that is why you want to train more than just muscle group, but also your tendons, those smaller muscle group, which I will dive deeper later in this video. Now, this leads to mistake number 3, which is ignoring tendons and joints. So your tendons actually adapt 3 to 5 times slower than your muscle. So even if your strength improves, right, your tendon may not be ready for the load and demand of your sports, right, leading to recurring pain. So you need to strengthen them as much as you strengthen your muscles, and this is a huge element that most athletes ignore. Now, I'll teach you how do you overcome these mistakes in this next section. So again, you are not broken, unlucky, or old, right? You are just out of sync between the way that you train and what your body actually needs now, right? Especially at an older age. So now let's go through the 5 things that you can actually start doing immediately to fix this and perform like your best self again, right? So the first one is load management. And what I mean by that is how you actually schedule your weekly workouts, how much work that you're actually putting it throughout the week. So the first thing that I want to emphasize is stop going hard 5 to 6 times per week, because we are humans, we are not robots, right? You might think that you are a beast, you can go hard every day, but I guarantee you might think that you are going hard, but you're actually not going as hard as you think you are, because no one can go 100% every single day. Our body needs time to recover, needs time to replenish in order to go 100% again. And it's better to have 3 times a week where you go actually 95% and above than having 5 to 6 times at about 80%, 70% intensity, right? So what I would suggest to start off with, especially if you're an athlete who are in your late 20s, 30s, and you have to balance between sports training, your own training, as well as your day-to-day life, this is what I suggest you to start with, right? Have 2 full body day where you focus on strength and power, right? Make sure it's focused and as well as intentional. You go into the gym, you lift heavy, you lift fast, add in some accessories, and then you get out there. And then the second component that I would suggest is you want to have at least 1 speed plus conditioning day. So this is where you usually want to do outdoors. You don't really need a gym. Sprint fast, about 10 to 40 meters, and repeat it till you feel that you are actually slowing down. And then you can combine this with some sort of conditioning day, depending on which energy system that you're missing, and it depends on your sports as well. So I can't dive too deep into this, if not it will be too long of a video. Now the third one is an optional accessories day, right? So this could be working on your core, your mobility, your delts, your arms, your ankles. So those little muscle group that you tend to ignore, you can throw it all into these days so that you make sure that you don't neglect them, right? As well as a daily mobility routine. So this is something that I give all of my athletes, a daily 5 to 10 mobility routine that cover all the joint areas, so that we make sure we keep them healthy, we keep them mobile, we keep them flexible to reduce the chance of getting injured as much as possible. And the goal here is to train adaptation, not about chasing exhaustion. So meaning we want to get stronger, we want to learn how to lift faster, we want to learn how to run faster, not just run until you feel tired. So how do you put all of them into a week? This is a quick example for you. So what you want to do is you want to alternate between high intensity day and a low intensity day so that it allows time in between for you to rest as well as power. So you can start off with strength and power day, which is focused more on your lower body, which causes more stress to your body. And you want to start this day off more fresh, right? Then you can take Tuesdays off, and Wednesday you get back into your second strength and power day. And this day you focus more on your upper body. Thursday rest again, and then Friday you can get into your speed and conditioning day. And Saturday you can finish off with an accessory day and take Sunday off again and then repeat, right? So this is one way of doing it. There's many ways of doing it, and there's no right or wrong way. And just make sure that follow these principles and you fit it into your schedule. And if you need my help to come up with your schedule, just DM me on Instagram and I'll see if I can help. Now, second is you want to strengthen your joints and small muscle group. So as I mentioned earlier, the pain actually starts at the weakest link, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. So for example, your ankle, your hips, your knee, your shoulder, your adductors, these are the areas that will break down quicker than your quads, your hamstring. And no point having a strong quad, strong hamstring, a strong chest, but the joints that connect all of them are weak and breaks down easily. And that is why you constantly get injured, because you neglect these areas. So how do we work on this area? So here's a quick list. I won't go through each one of them, but you can just quickly take a screenshot if you need. So just a general rule of thumb on how do you actually progress them is you want to start off with isometrics to load that tendon. And then you can add control eccentric, meaning you go slow on the way down, about 3 to 5 seconds. Then you start loading them heavy. You increase the weight each week, and then you add in some sort of dynamic work. For example, like plyos that mimics the movement in sports. This is where you tie all of them together and transfer them into your sports. Now, the third is strength training. So your strength training is the foundation of your pain-free movement. Now, I want to clarify what strength training means. So most of the time people think that they're actually doing strength training, but they're actually just getting a pump, right? They're just getting their hypertrophy work in. And the difference between strength training and hypertrophy training is hypertrophy training, we focus more on getting a pump, getting blood flow in. But strength training is about increasing the amount of force that you can produce. It's about getting stronger. So how do we actually increase our strength is through 4 elements, which is you need to have quality, you need to control your movement, you need to move it with intent, and the most important thing is you need to have some sort of progression. If you're not progressing, you are not improving and you're not actually increasing your strength. Now, when it comes to strength training, there's few key movements that you want to actually target throughout the week. And we start off with some sort of compound lift, which is your squat, hinge, push, pull, and you want to make sure that you cover each of these movements throughout the week. And the rule of thumb is have 3 to 5 sets in each session, about 3 to 6 reps, and you want to move at least 85% weight of your 1 rep max. And each week you want to progress either in weight, in sets, or in reps, and you want to make sure that you are actually tracking your numbers and that you are always improving each week. And that is how we ensure that we are actually getting stronger. And that's how I ensure all my athletes are actually increasing their force output, because again, that is the foundation of pain-free movement. Now, the secondary lift that you want to make sure that you cover throughout the week is rotate, bend, as well as lunge, right? Forward, backwards, as well as sideways. So with this, you want to do slightly higher weight, so 2 to 3 sets for each of these movements throughout the week, 6 to 10 reps, and about 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max, right? So you could start with compound lift and then move on to the secondary lift and choose an exercise that you can actually perform well and stick with the exercise for at least 4 to 6 weeks in order to get the best out of it. So the next point is you want to progress your plyos and speed work safely. So this is a huge mistake that I see a lot of athletes make. They get injured, they've gone through their rehab process, they feel good, and then they return to sports immediately, which require them to sprint at full speed at times, right? And this is where injuries start to happen again, because the most stressful thing that you can do to your body is sprinting at your max velocity, right? And this is where injuries happen. This is where your muscle breakdown. This is where your joint actually snaps. So how do we actually progress is you want to build in phases. Now, the first phase is focusing more on extensive plyos. So for example, your pogo hops, your skips, your low contact plyometrics, your low contact jumps that slowly expose your body to this higher velocity, higher speed movement. While of course you still want to be doing the rest of your strength work, your mobility work, your conditioning work. I'm just talking about your plyos and speed. So the next step is then you start incorporating more intensive plyometrics, aka the higher intensity plyos. So such as your box jump, your bounce, your landings, and do that for about 4 to 6 weeks. Then you can start incorporating some short acceleration, about 10 to 20 meters, and progress each week, add on about 5 meters to it. Then you can start adding some change of direction, some more specific drills to your sport. And that is how you want to progress and slowly expose your body to the higher intensity plyos, the highest velocity sprints that you see on social media, and you don't want to just copy what you see on social media and directly dive into it coming back from an injury, right? And that is how I personally get injured a lot as well, because I skip steps. And you don't want to skip steps. You want to follow that protocol. You want to follow that phases, right? Now, the last one is you want to follow a structured plan. And there's no point doing all of these right things without structure, without a plan, without a proper step-by-step progression. None of this matters, right, at the end of the day. So you need a plan that actually integrates strength, mobility, power, speed, conditioning, recovery. So the 7 aspects of athleticism, and it depends on where you are at, right? It's not, you don't have to put the same importance to all 7 aspects and overwhelm yourself. So how do you actually come up with a structured plan? Now there's a lot that we can dive into, but I'll give you some quick pointers, right? So the first one is you want to determine the right volume and split. So determine how many days that you can actually train throughout the week. So I would suggest a maximum of 3 high intensity days, and you want to start the week of the hardest. So exercise. So days like your lower body, your sprint work, right? So look at your week. How many days are you actually training with your team? How many days are you training on your own? And come up with a plan where you can alternate between high and low intensity days so that you don't overwhelm yourself. And I would suggest to always have a complete rest day, which is the day after a game day, to allow yourself to properly recover. And you want to play the long game and do not rush the process. All right. Now, once you have determined how many days you can actually train, you want to then determine your goal, whether it's to rehab, get stronger, get fast, get explosive, or just to stay fresh and ready for the game. And whatever that goal is, you want to dedicate 30 to 40% of your workouts working on that, right? So for example, you are trying to rehab and get rid of your pain. So you want to work on more mobility, isometric, strength work. So this components should make up about 40% of your entire program, and then the rest you dedicate to your explosive work, perhaps working on your core, right, and your conditioning. So you want to put more priority in the specific goal in your program, because there's no way that you can put the same importance to all these aspects, and there's a lot of aspects that we can focus on as athlete when you want to train like an athlete, and it's a lot more complex when you compare it to a bodybuilder program. But one easy way to do it is just look at your program. Are you dedicating at least 30 to 40% towards that set goal of that particular phase, right? Now the last one is to cover every movements as well as joint. So the movement that I've mentioned, which is your push, your pull, your squat, your hinge movement, and then your rotation, your bending movement, and then lunging forward, backwards, as well as sideways. You want to make sure that you cover each of these movements throughout the week, at least for 2 to 4 sets, right? And as well as the joints, which I've mentioned again, such as your ankle, your hip, your adductors, your rotator cuff. So one simple way to incorporate all this is you can superset one big movement with one small movement. So for example, you can do a heavy squat, which is your big movement, and superset with some sort of rotator cuff exercises, for example, to bulletproof your shoulder. And that is one way to save time, get strong, cover all the movement while still working on building up that joint resilience so that you don't get injured, right? So this is a quick and easy way to start coming up with a plan that helps you stay injury-free, strong, perform better. And if you want a more personalized plan, you can always reach out to me on Instagram, right? Now, this is the same method that I've helped my athletes overcome knee pain, hip injuries, hamstring pull within just 60 to 90 days, and now moving and performing at their best. So I'll show you an example of an athlete that I've been working with for the past 4 months. Her name is Kai. She'd been struggling with constant knee pain before she came to me, right? She was wearing knee sleeve, and when we hopped on the call last week, she actually told me that it's the first time she ever worked out without knee sleeves, and she actually broke down in the gym. And I'll play this clip quickly for you, right?
Things I was waiting to tell you that last week was my first week that I didn't need my knee sleeve at all. I don't know what made me feel like working out that day without it, but I just no, the week before was when I kind of sort of broke down in the middle of my workout because I was doing the box drops, and when I dared that day, I went up. I was doing 12 inches and then I added another 6 inches. Mechanics felt great. I didn't have any issues with my knees. If anything, I just got even more excited, and then it got me feeling emotional about how far I've came since we started. Like I was scared to, drop down from such a height without like feeling my knees are gonna buckle in or whatever. But
And result like this is exactly what I do, the things that I do, and gives me a purpose that I can't describe. And it truly, truly, truly fills my heart, right, when I hear testimonies like this. So if you're an athlete and you are watching this video and you're telling yourself, that's exactly what I'm going through right now, and you're ready to finally move pain free again. You want to start feeling confident in your body and get back to your prime, and you're ready to train smarter. You want to fix your pain at the root. You want to rebuild strength and power safely and get back to performing like your best self again without spending hours in the gym. I want to personally help you. So there's a link below where you can apply my one-on-one coaching program and learn more about my methods as well as how I actually help athletes overcome pain. So if you're interested, just click that link somewhere below in the description. If not, I hope you enjoy this sort of video where I break down things in more detail, and I hope you got something out of this video. So yeah, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.